You expecting somebody?
Yes.
Oh, Your Excellency. We've been expecting you. As chairwoman of the reception committee, I extend the good wishes of every man, woman, and child of Fredonia.
Never mind that stuff. Take a card.
Card? What'll I do with the card?
You can keep it. I've got 51 left. Now, what were you saying?
As chairwoman of the reception committee, I welcome you with open arms.
Is that so? How late do you stay open?
I've sponsored your appointment because I feel you are the most able statesman in all Fredonia.
Well, that covers a lot of ground. Say, you cover a lot of ground yourself. You better beat it. I hear they're going to tear you down and put up an office building where you're standing. You can leave in a taxi. If you can't get a taxi, you can leave in a huff. If that's too soon, you can leave in a minute and a half. You know you haven't stopped talking since I came here? You must have been vaccinated with a phonograph needle.
The future of Fredonia rests on you. Promise me you'll follow in the footsteps of my husband.
How do you like that? I haven't been on the job 5 minutes, and already she's making advances to me. Not that I care.
Hi, and welcome to We Pick Your President, the New Hampshire FITN. My guest today is Matt Connarton.
Well, hello. It's wonderful to be here. It's been a long time, my friend.
Yes.
Been a long time.
Which will be our ending song, Groucho singing, Hello, I Must Be Going. The primary, FITN, we're not talking about fitness, is first in the nation primary. And do you think this is the last one, Matt Connarton?
The last first in the nation primary?
The last FITN primary in New Hampshire.
Well, I have always said, to paraphrase, and you've heard me say this, I've said this to you on the air on my when you would appear on my radio show, that to paraphrase Charlton Heston, they will pry the first in the nation primary from my cold, dead hands.
The thing is, does the New Hampshire FITN matter like it did?
It matters to me, John, but I'm inherently selfish. So, yes, it matters. It matters. Frankly, it matters more than it ever did, in my view.
How's that?
Because that's what I feel, and I decide these things based purely on emotion. I am no longer operating under a logic-based system, and I'm purely on emotion at this point. Because that's what I feel our politics has become, and that's what it's done to me.
Hey, can we have a wide shot so we can see our background more fully?
Ooh, yes.
Yes.
Wow.
I believe we have a picture of, what do they call it?
I call him Drumpf.
Trump, of President 45, and not... And within our lifetimes, seeing as you don't believe that a nuclear war is imminent.
I do not.
Okay,
I'm
so within the next less than a year, well, I guess we have to go to January 20th when he becomes President 47 again.
Yes, which will happen.
I believe that he will be reelected President of the United States.
I say that with no, we should clarify too for your viewers who might not be familiar with me. I say that with no joy. I loathe Mr. Drumpf, but unfortunately, as far as I can tell, Grandpa Joe and the Democratic establishment have already ceded the 2024 election to Trump by demonstrating that with some limited exceptions, I'm talking about the establishment
Democratic Party establishment.
Yes, they have clearly already, they are on a trajectory to sleepwalk into the 2024 election, and therefore they will hand it to Trump. If you turn on, I don't know if you ever suffer through the television program Morning Joe.
Oh, I thought you were turning on. We were, talking about Matt Connarton Unsheathed.
Oh, well, that's always
the very dark.
That's always.
We're not talking about.
No, not talking about that
type of turn.
No.
On. Okay.
If you turn on Morning Joe on MSNBC on any given day, you'll hear establishment Democrats talking about, oh yes, there's these polls in these swing states which show Trump beating Biden, but don't worry about it. By the time we get to November, it'll be fine. It'll all work itself out. That's their attitude. They'll say in one breath, democracy is on the line. Trump is a threat to democracy. And then you say, okay, so what are you going to do about it? You're going to fight for our democracy, right? Nah, not really. It'll all be fine. It'll all work out. Biden will get reelected. Don't worry about it. I mean, that's their attitude.
Well, so you believe, not saying that you support Dean Phillips, who is, along with Marianne Williamson, who you actually interviewed.
I am supporting Marianne Williamson because, again, as we mentioned, I'm selfish. And Marianne Williamson came and did a 1-hour interview with Jenny and I on my radio program, Matt Connarton Unleashed. So I will reciprocate by voting for her in the primary.
Can we have that one of those slides, the one of Ward 13 with Matt and Vermin Supreme?
Ooh. We have slides. Yes.
Now,
that's not. Now I look a little
voted,
strange in that picture, though. I think. I don't think I look quite like myself.
No, you were going through that phase. That's before you were revitalized by Norm.
Mm-hmm. Yes. Yes. Norm. I hadn't done my skincare regimen.
I see that you did vote for Vermin Supreme, but you see his new motto is he's here to take your guns and give you better ones, which is something I don't think that you can get behind.
No.
So you no longer
feel the verm. I love it.
You no longer feel the verm this year.
I do not feel the verm, only for one reason, though.
Why is that?
Because
he's not going to show up on the show, even
That's
though I've
right.
been begging him for a month.
This election cycle, Vermin Supreme has not engaged with me. Marianne Williamson has, therefore Marianne Williamson gets my vote.
That's fair enough. I wrote an article about Dean Phillips in my comedian column. I've been generally ignoring politics lately, so I don't have nightmares.
Uh-huh.
And it was fascinating how he was attacked by this supposed watchdog organization that his campaign is engaged in financial skullduggery because I guess some big Republican had helped him set up his campaign in New Hampshire, then left, then created a PAC.
Oh, is that true?
And then Phillips hired Bernie Sanders, a person that was high in Bernie Sanders' campaign in 2020. We actually met to run the campaign here. But as the campaign says, and some other people, experts say, this, it's outland, it's not true what they say. But they filed this whistleblower organization filed a complaint with the FEC just last week, and then I picked it apart about how it is associated with this group, this for-profit group that's the major bundler of dark money to Democrats.
Okay.
And that the person that filed this complaint had worked until recently for a nonprofit that's the number 5 in the DNC, the Democratic National Committee, the nonprofits handling money.
Yeah.
So I was going to write also an article about how he's being ignored by the press, TV, and all that. But one of his campaign people gave me the personal email address of Dean Phillips' press officer, and I wrote 2 notes, and they never responded. So maybe that's one of the reasons why he's not getting so much press attention,
By the way, I just have to say this is off topic, but I have to point it out. Because you have 2 microphones in front of you, as you're speaking, I'm pretending that you're at a press conference, just for fun, because it looks like it, and I like that.
You can have 2.
I can?
Yeah.
It'll be like I'm
over 2.
It'll be like I'm at a press conference. Wow, this will be great.
Gonzo.
This will be great. No, I don't want to. I'm a guest. I don't want to be pulling things, and that would be in bad form.
And Vermin Supreme didn't show up to that show. was it 2016? I think it was 2016. Or it could have been 2020 until 39 minutes in.
It's all a blur.
So, yeah. Yeah.
But I mean, I like Vermin Supreme. I like the boot. I like the dental hygiene. I like the ponies. But I'm here. Where is he? He's not here.
In a way, I'm glad that he isn't showing up because I said that we would be giving him a kangaroo. And when I opened up my Case Logic that I keep my flash drives in, which it was in, it wasn't here. Can we see the picture of what he might get in a few? If he shows up, he's going to get Hoppy the kangaroo.
Not an actual kangaroo.
Although, yeah, I just noticed I asked Brendan, who's a very talented artist.
Yes, he is. He did my logo for the radio show.
I said, is it from the Flintstones? He says it is probably a Hanna-Barbera creation.
It is Hanna-Barbera-esque.
Yes.
I noticed no pouch on the kangaroo.
Well, males don't have pouches.
Oh, right. I don't know much about these things.
My vest, my $10 vest from Walmart sprung a leak. Yet a tragedy. So there's fake fur that I'm covered with and I'm battling.
Well, fake fur is better than real fur because that's inhumane, real fur. And someone from PETA could, not Peter White, PETA, P-E-T-A, could come in and throw fake blood on you if you wear real fur. So I commend you.
Okay. There's a lot of lines I could take up, but we're going to try to be a little serious.
All right. We can be a lot serious if you want. But yes, we're doomed. Trump will win.
Why does the media still take the Iowa caucuses serious after the debacle of 2020? Remember when Eric Pilcher first showed up in our media lives, I really laid into him about being from Iowa and having participated in a caucus.
Caucus? You hardly know us. I've been waiting all day to do that joke. Why does the
Once again, that's for the dark now.
Oh, I'm sorry. Why does the media take the Iowa caucus seriously?
Yeah. Why is it? It drives me crazy, as you know. Maureen Dowd was talking about, Jimmy Carter won the Iowa caucus and it made him. Hey, I was 16 years old. I was participating in the New Hampshire caucus with Honorable Heidi Hamer's husband, Gary. We were, working for one of the liberal candidates. There were 4 liberal candidates. And Jimmy Carter was a conservative. And I can tell you, folks, in 1976, nobody gave a damn about Iowa. And Jimmy Carter came in a distant second to non-committed.
Really?
The first year that they ever talked about the Iowa caucuses was in 80, when people thought Ted Kennedy would just, really probably win the New Hampshire primary because he's a candidate in East Massachusetts. His brother had won a big blowout in 1960. Of course, his brother had been more conservative, and he'd also paid for the primary. Well, his father did, as RFK Jr. pointed out in St. A's last year. But well, let's not talk about that. It would be a different primary if he was still in, but Iowa was the first year, and I always thought the press made a deal out of it because they didn't think there was going to be a contest in New Hampshire, not knowing, because nobody ever knows really. Everything I've read about the New Hampshire primaries basically doesn't really get what happens here. And that Jimmy Carter had put tens of millions of dollars into New Hampshire, including a rail link, to buy our goodwill. And Ted was also, number one, as left as you got in the Democratic Party at the time.
Yeah.
And he'd still be, left. I always say Bernie Sanders is basically a Ted Kennedy Democrat.
Yeah.
And the other thing is, we found out that after he passed, and they revealed some of his diaries, that he didn't want to be president, and in 1980 he ran not wanting to win.
Yeah.
Because that was the big thing. They were saying, what's going on here?
Well, Trump, he didn't want to win either.
Is that your personal opinion, or did he say that back in 2016?
That's my personal opinion. The only time I can recall in my lifetime the Iowa caucus really being relevant would be 2004. Because in 2004, it looked like Howard Dean was on track, and and he was in the left lane, it looked like he was on track to, and then
Is that when he gave up that rebel yell?
well, after losing, yeah, because John Kerry ended up. I remember this vividly too. In the days leading up to the Iowa caucus, all of a sudden John Kerry was surging for some inexplicable reason. You can't blame the scream because that hadn't happened yet.
Yeah.
And then he won, and then he won the Iowa caucus, and then the Dean scream happened, and the media freaked out about the Dean scream, and then it was like, oh, okay, I guess maybe John Kerry's the front runner now. And then sure enough, he won New Hampshire, and he was off to the nomination.
Right. It used to be somebody'd win Iowa, and then they'd lose New Hampshire.
Yeah.
And then it'd be over with. You know, some outlier candidate would win, or somebody not so marginal, but not that very big.
Yeah.
The thing is, Iowa, we've talked about with Eric Pilcher, it's just completely undemocratic. It has no sense at all. How do you win the Iowa caucus? Is it just like, oh, geez, you're like the last of three people standing? Mm-hmm. You know, there'd be a 2, 3, 4, 5 shows just to explain the idiotic process.
Oh, yeah.
Which screwed up in 2020. But it's almost like the press. Just, you know, this is something that just created. The New Hampshire primary when I was a kid, from 68, when it was so central, when Eugene McCarthy came in second and knocked out LBJ. Then in 72, Muskie cried because William Loeb was writing nasty things about him. William Loeb of the Manchester Union Leader, a very right-wing, well-known because of the New Hampshire primary.
Yeah.
And Muskie went on the back of a truck in front of the Union Leader building, and with snow coming down, they say he cried, but it was probably just snow on his face.
Right, yeah.
But why would he bother to do that was the big thing.
Yeah.
And he did come in first, but McGovern came in second, and they declared that, just like Eugene McCarthy, he's the winner. 92, Bill Clinton comes in second, because they think Paul Tsongas, Massachusetts, they figure he's a favorite son. That's who I had voted for.
Right.
But and Bill Cashin, who used to be the alderman and the former chairman of the board here, was part of Bill Clinton's campaign. And when the Jennifer Flowers scandal came out, they figured, oh, it's over.
Yeah.
But I remember Danny O'Neill, who was, another famous alderman, saying Bill Cashin was a foot shorter than Bill Clinton's, putting his finger in his chest. You will campaign from Nashua, Manchester, Concord. Because all these people were saying, oh, you got to go all over the place.
Right.
Portsmouth. He says, already won Portsmouth. You don't have to go out to Peter. This is the axis.
Yeah.
And that's what Bill did. And he came in so close that he was able to say, I'm the comeback kid.
Yeah, it's funny. That's why if you talk to younger people who are interested in politics but maybe aren't necessarily experts, there's a misconception that Clinton actually won that primary just because of that clip of him saying tonight you made Bill Clinton the comeback kid.
But he did win.
But because Tsongas was going to win no matter what. Yeah,
right. That's the thing about the New Hampshire primary, and he came back, and he he lose by just 2 points. The point was the old New Hampshire primary it was a longer process. It was in March, and I think when I was a kid, it was in early April. The press was here. It was the only game in town that first time. Although there was Maryland and other ones, Florida and stuff. But contests went on for a long time. The last significant one seems to be like 2008. Well, 2008. Remember, Obama did win the Iowa caucuses.
Yes.
And he came in a strong second in New Hampshire, but Hillary cried. And still, it's really that Obama, they never declared him the winner because the press perceptions were starting to change about things. Because it seemed like candidates are front-loaded nowadays,
What do you mean?
How many people? Well, Uncle Joe Biden back in 88 had to drop out in September of 1987 because it was found out that in New Hampshire earlier in the year, he had made up stuff about his own academic record.
Oh, yeah.
Then he was quoting Robert Kennedy
plagiarism.
And Robert F. Kennedy, the father, the original Robert Kennedy, my childhood hero, and Hubert Humphrey, and taking things they had said and passing him off as his own. Hubert Humphrey having been the vice president, one of the most famous liberals ever, and gave Nixon a run for the money in '68. And then he took Neil Kinnock, the Labor Party leader, took his biography, grafted it onto his own, and actually gave a speech that Neil Kinnock had given. And if you read the New York Times, there was questions about his veracity, his honesty, and his character, and a few other things, too. See, it's always fascinating to me that he finally won.
Yeah.
I would never think that he'd be president after '88. Then in 2008, he never made it out of Iowa.
Yeah, he dropped out. I remember he dropped out right after the Iowa caucus.
He came in 5th. Bill Richardson was 4th. The big winner was Obama, but then Hillary was strong. And then John Edwards, the former from he was a senator, right, from South Carolina.
Yes, yeah.
Who was like a populist.
Yeah.
And Bill Richardson, who'd been the governor of New Mexico, he stayed into the New Hampshire.
That's who I voted for.
That's who I voted for.
Primary.
Because when I went through all the candidates, he was.
I really
he
liked
seemed
him.
to be the better person.
Yeah.
He died last year.
I know. Yeah.
And but it was a contest between Hillary and Barack. And John Edwards, that went on for a little while. Edwards finally dropped out. So I don't think he did so well in South Carolina. But he did go a little further.
Yeah, because I remember debates with the 3 of them.
Right.
And then eventually it was debates with the 2 of them when John Edwards. Because even when they still had debates with the 3 of them, John Edwards was always the 3rd.
Right.
He never surpassed either of them in the polls.
But Obama showed that he had the stuff.
Yeah.
But as, Bill Cashman will say Hillary was the worst candidate in history, but we won't go into the details. She was a very poor candidate. I mean, she lost to a neophyte senator, and then she lost to Mr. MAGA himself. I mean, you have to go down to history as like one of the all-time worst candidates ever. But then in
although in her defense, she did beat him by 3 million votes.
Yeah, but see, that had already happened. We had that in 2000.
Oh yeah, Republicans never win the popular vote. When's the last time they? 2004, I think. I think Bush, I think W won the popular vote in 2004, and prior to that, I don't know when the last time was.
And but the point is that you don't go for the popular vote. You're going for the Electoral College. And in 2016, she ignored Pennsylvania, which is now trending towards Trump, which is a major disaster. But the thing is, I remember 2016. Iowa happened, and suddenly only 3 candidates came out. Bernie, Hillary, and the guy for the former governor of Maryland, who was a decent guy. I interviewed him, but I can't remember his name.
You know, I can picture him, and I can't remember his name either. Because he disappeared after that. I think he left politics.
Well, yeah. He was, remember Baltimore, before BLM became BLM around 2020. Yeah. BLM was a thing in 2016. Remember with that kid that died in the Black Mariah, the paddy wagon in Baltimore, and he had been the mayor of Baltimore. Yes. So he really got a lot of crap for that. Even he was already weakened, and that kind of like did him in. Very talented musician too. Actually. Yeah, he was. Because he used to sell his CDs. And he actually has a song to Danny O'Neill, who was the chairman of the board of the Alderman of Manchester. And those are the type of people, a presidential candidate has to flatter. And that. But what was his name? It begins with an M. Well, I'm gonna have to look it up quickly here. So that one, 2016, well, Bernie won 60% of the vote. That was a tremendous thing. But, of course, Hillary came out with a majority of delegates finally because as of the superdelegates, right? Well, the process to picking delegates is this, folks. The primary or caucus is only 1/3 of the delegates. We have 24, so 8 were picked. Then in 2016, registered Democrats could go to meetings in their congressional districts, which I did go to, and we got to vote for 4 more delegates. I voted for Chris Pappas, who is now a congressman and was an executive counselor then, and Donna Soucy, who was then the president of the New Hampshire State Senate. Both people I knew personally, but I was asked by Joyce Craig, of all people, to vote for 2 Bernie Sanders delegates, which I did. So we sent 2 of Bernie and 2 of Hillary. Then there was a third round, which was like closed to just the top so-and-sos of the New Hampshire Democratic Party. And they probably went all in. Or maybe 6 to...
Martin O'Malley.
Martin O'Malley, yeah.
That was his name.
But it just was from the time in 76 where Jimmy Carter, even in July they're saying, can Jimmy Carter be stopped, And Hubert Humphreys, who was on his deathbed, was thinking of jumping in and stuff.
Yeah.
To where things are pretty front-loaded. But how long did Trump take to win the 2016?
Well, he lost Iowa.
Right, but Iowa never really.
Then, yeah.
People that win Iowa win the
But
who don't win New Hampshire generally.
Yeah, who was it who won Iowa?
It was the guy whose father assassinated JFK.
Oh yes, Ted Cruz. That's right.
Lying Ted Cruz won Iowa.
Lying Ted Cruz. Did you know? Interesting thing. You can insult his wife and he'll forgive you and support you in the end. That one sticks in my craw because when I was Gary Hopper's co-host on Rock, Paper, Hand Grenades, the lovely Heidi Cruz, Ted Cruz's wife, joined us on the show one week, and she was lovely.
Did anybody call in and insult her?
No.
Okay.
Well,
that's good.
Trump tried to, but we hung up on him. No, I'm kidding.
Melania didn't make any of her notorious phone calls.
But no, Melania. But in 2016... Trump lost Iowa, but then he won New Hampshire, and that was it. He was off to
the races.
And you know what I remember about that? And I'm sure you and I had talked about it on the air quite a bit. Was on your program here. Was how people were in this weird denial. People get into denial about Trump's inevitability because I remember in 2016, Trump was like way ahead of everybody in the polls. He was the only one in double digits. And people right up to the primary were saying, oh, he's not going to win the primary.
I remember a certain host on public TV at the time saying that because he really didn't want to be president. And even when he was the nominee, you said he wasn't going to win.
Well, I said he was going to win the New Hampshire primary. But no, I did not think he'd win the general election. And no, I don't believe he wanted to win the general election. I think he assumed he was going to lose, and that would be it.
Well, now we have quite a different situation.
Now he needs to win to stay out of prison.
What's that noise?
Is Drumpf here? Is he here in the studio?
He was. I got denied a credential to cover him.
I have met him in person.
A couple of times. I covered him.
Yeah.
He's terrible, though. He just talks forever. Every other candidate is very disciplined. And they all have their own time frames.
Yeah.
A congressman goes like for 10 to 15 minutes. A senator will go for 20. A vice president might go for a half hour. But a president tries to go 40, 45 minutes, or else you're going to bore the living hell out of everybody. And you go to one of the Trump things, and it was over. It's like an hour and a half. It's still going on. And it's just all the same crap. Insulting people.
There's that drop I used to play on the radio show all the time of Trump saying, "I stand up here for an hour and a half, many times without notes." It's like, yeah, it shows. It shows, buddy.
You're on a riser, standing.
But it doesn't matter. I mean, they still love it. It's such a cult.
I don't know if it's I studied when I was at university studying with Howard Zinn, but I studied all these books and I still have them because I'm going through all my books, get rid of stuff, and about everything about how fascism in Germany came to be. How did that happen? How did Germany become Nazi? Because in 1900, if you figured any country in Europe would sponsor a Holocaust, outside of Russia, who've always been, their own wild and crazy selves, it had been France, which was incredibly anti-Semitic. You had the Dreyfus trial, and where Dreyfus, who was Jewish, was just railroaded. Even most people figured he was innocent, but hell, he's Jewish, so he's guilty anyways. Winds up on Devil's Island. One of the greatest writers ever, Emile Zola, came out in his defense and has to get his ass over to England before they slap him in jail for defending him. Though that's in countries that didn't have a First Amendment.
Right,
stuff.
right.
But I tell you, Matt. Somehow I don't remember how we got to Emile Zola.
Well, you were talking about Richard Dreyfuss and how much you liked him in Close Encounters, I think.
Actually, I think it would have been better with Gene Hackman.
Oh, I don't disagree. I love Gene Hackman.
Had to drop out because his wife was threatening to divorce him, and she finally did.
I didn't know that, but Jenny and I just recently watched Mississippi Burning, my favorite Gene Hackman
Great
film.
movie.
Absolutely.
You know, they call a girdle, the corset that male actors in the early 80s, they called it the Richard Dreyfuss special.
Did they really?
Yeah, I could use one of those.
Oh, my goodness.
Yeah.
Oh, my goodness.
But
So do we agree Trump is inevitable in obviously in the nomination? I always refer to him as the presumptive nominee.
It's just like he's going to be the nominee, and I think he'll be the next president of the United States, which... hey, how come I can't get sanctuary anywhere?
That'll be Biden's legacy. The guy who took the keys from Trump in 2020 just to hand them back in 2024.
Well, Hillary was such a terrible candidate, and she had such a lousy campaign. That's one of the reasons Trump wins.
Mm-hmm.
And I always believed that if the election in 2020 went another week or 2 weeks, Trump would have won.
You think so? Really?
Because he was starting to come on. Because there was a reaction to the BLM and the... We can't call them riots, can we? But in late October, when 538 was still a real website, before ABC just destroyed it, they fired like everybody, and Nate Silver left a while ago. It's worthless now, but it was always the best when Nate Silver, because he honed himself on gambling, So it seems to be a great way to So he's doing like the odds.
Yeah.
And just in 2016, he showed how Hillary got screwed by Comey.
Mm-hmm.
She just went with a drop after Comey pulled his stunt, and then he apologizes, but she couldn't come back in time.
Right.
But in 2020, the same Silver showing, there was an actual riot going on in Philadelphia, and they had mobilized the National Guard. Not that the mass media at the time wasn't really, unlike when I was a kid, they'd been trumpeting it like for hell,
Yeah.
Was really covering it so much. Then again, folks, I can't watch news. I just can't watch news, so maybe on that I'm full of what. And... but it showed. Suddenly, Trump's starting to come on.
Yeah.
But I think another week or two. But that's just, one of those things.
Yeah.
But here he is, That what happened to him didn't stop him.
Right.
It's funny, but so as Hillary gave us Trump, just like Jimmy Carter, great man, lousy president. I found one of the books saying Carter, the disaster. It was published in 1980.
Yeah.
And, the press was not sentimental about Jimmy Carter's screw-ups in 1980.
Yeah.
And that helped Reagan get elected.
Yeah.
But just as Hillary engendered President 45, Biden will give us President 47.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
They're not even going to do debates.
You don't think they will?
There's no debates. They both declared a long time ago they're not going to debate.
Oh, okay.
And see, Nikki Haley said, "I'm not going to debate either one of them. If I debate either one of them, it's going to be in person."
Do you think there's any chance at all that she wins New Hampshire? I mean, I saw a poll last night that showed them tied, but I don't even believe it.
What poll is it? Yeah.
Yeah, I forget where the poll was from, but it showed them tied at 40%.
I think DeSantis is through.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
I don't know what's been going on here. No. I haven't really been following anything because there's no Democratic primary care of Joe Biden. We talk about here's the thing. When I was writing the article about Dean Phillips, these groups are like part of the Democratic national establishment, and they're well funded with dark money. They are NBC, like in late September of 2022, is writing about one of the organizations that the woman who filed the complaint had been involved with, saying they're part of a group that are going to defend Joe Biden by attacking the Republicans. And they're declaring, oh, well, they're doing this. We're going to make their lives, we're going to expose them. We're going to investigate them.
Mm-hmm.
And so the thing is, we're talking about, this whole thing, and Joe Biden will tell you himself, but for him, there's no democracy. But for him, we have Godzilla here who's going to destroy American democracy, and Joe Biden is the bulwark of freedom.
Right.
Joe Biden, of all people. Remember all the criticisms of him. And so, it reminds me of a short story that Joseph Heller wrote, Catch-22, wrote based on the character Nately, who is in the novel. And in one of the lines, he just says, he's talking about right-winger militarists who will defend the Constitution by destroying it. Mm-hmm. So in order to defend democracy, we can't have any democracy in the Democratic Party. Mm-hmm. So, Dean, and I think Dean Phillips is off the North Carolina ballot. I'm not sure if Marianne Williamson made it.
Yeah.
Florida's not having any primary at all.
Yeah.
There's only one candidate. How can you not have any primary at all?
Well, there were states that did that in 2020, too, for Trump.
And the Republicans have done this crap, too.
Well, that's what I mean, yeah. They just said, we're just not even going to bother, which I kind of, I'm sort of two minds on that. Part of me says, well, that's anti-democratic, with a small d, of course. And then part of me says, but, the practical pragmatist in me says, but if you already know the result, why bother?
Right, and these are private entities. They're not in the Constitution. The Constitution wasn't set up to be a parliament with political parties.
Yeah.
But here's the thing. I was at, we had a delegate selection process picking 2 Saturdays ago at St. A's. And it was picking the people that would be delegates to the convention. And the New Hampshire party, the Democratic Party, is running a write-in Joe Biden campaign. So most of the people went there. I went to Dean Phillips. Somebody was in the Dean Phillips, and this guy says, am I in the right place? I'm looking for Marianne Williamson. She says, oh, no, she's down there. And I said, follow the crystals.
Yeah.
Or you'd think with the mystery, the spirituality, he'd just have known where to go.
Right.
But we were told that... I asked the question that the DNC people have already taken the New Hampshire Democrats to Chicago, and they've shown them the accommodations that they're going to have. But you see, once again, the DNC, the Democratic National Committee, last week sent a thing to Ray Buckley in the New Hampshire Party. You're out of order. You're telling people this is an election and that they can elect, blah, 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 which the Attorney General of New Hampshire, who is was it New Hampshire Attorney General? Yeah, because it wasn't the Secretary of State, because he doesn't have any power to say it.
Yeah.
They said to the DNC, we're going to charge you with interference because this is a state election and you're interfering, influencing it. But when you realize that there are delegates being picked, there's 24, and 2 more rounds, there's going to be 16 delegates. That doesn't mean the 8 delegates that are going to be next Tuesday, based on next Tuesday's votes, are going to go to Chicago, unless they go to Joe Biden. Now, who's going to win? What's going to happen this Tuesday? In the New Hampshire, we all know that Republican Party, I think Trump's going to win.
Oh, I do too.
The question is he gets 50%.
I do too.
And it's moot anyways, because even when they get to South Carolina, her own state, where evangelicals rule.
They love Trump.
Iowa,
they love
think
Trump.
He's God. This guy who has an abortion clause in his NDAs for his whores, for his girlfriends, whatever you want to call them, that she's going to lose South Carolina.
Her own state.
So this is it's futile. It's like 2 incumbents running.
Well, ultimately, too, the way I look at it, both with her and DeSantis, they're not really running for president in 2024 to begin with. They're running for president in 2028.
Right. But what's going to happen? What's going to happen to the Republicans?
Yeah, Trump will win. I'll be very...
What do you think? How much? Will he break 50?
No.
I say no. Yeah.
Yeah, I say no. But I'll be very proud of my state if Nikki Haley gives him a fight.
If she gets like 33.
Yeah, if anything that
30%.
anything that puts a dent in his inevitability and invincibility, I'll be very proud of my state for that. And I think for the Democrats, I don't know. This is weird with the whole write-in.
Joe
thing.
Biden is easy to write in. That's an easy to write in name. But so's Robert Kennedy, and the Secretary of State has ruled. Secretary of State handles the elections, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
Right. And Jesus, what's happened to me? It's time to wrap up. This is the second to last we pick your president because. It should be we picked your president.
Yeah, I know, right.
The New Hampshire inevitability, the role where we really did is over.
Yeah.
And maybe it's time to wrap up the whole public TV career of Jon Hopwood.
Oh.
Because I'm going to be I'm now as irrelevant as the New Hampshire primary and the Democrats.
You'll always be relevant, John.
But do you think people write in Robert F. Kennedy?
I guess they could, right? You can write in anybody.
Everybody, any name, including Mickey Mouse, it has to be written down and collated now, according to the state election officials, and it's just not going to be reported as scatter, which it always is. Everything is going to be written down. So Robert Kennedy, could get 10%.
We're in uncharted waters here, right? Nothing like this has ever happened before, right? Where an incumbent president was not on a ballot for a primary.
Yes, 1968,
Really?
LBJ.
Really?
And
I didn't know that.
He got 49% of the vote, and Eugene McCarthy got over 40%, and that knocked him out. Because then Robert Kennedy, the father, who wasn't crazy, and I don't think RFK Jr. is necessarily.
Wait, I want to make sure I understand this. LBJ was not on a ballot for a state primary?
He was a write-in.
Really?
Yeah, yes, and that gave, but Eugene McCarthy was on the ballot. Who'd have think Eugene McCarthy would get over 40% of the vote?
Right.
And but once again, Bill Cashin told me in '68 they made sure that LBJ got enough votes.
Yeah.
And an old friend of mine, who was the mother of kids I grew up with, told me, who was a Democratic activist, told me in '68 that the Ward 10 we used to vote at the fire station, and all of a sudden the people that the Democrats running the election, were old-fashioned types, and there was this younger guy, like a waspy type of guy. Remember, this is a city of Irish, French Canadian, who are Celts too, and they decide they're going to go out and intimidate this guy because they think he's a Eugene McCarthy person. And this woman, her husband was a college professor at St. Anselm's, said to him, "Leave him alone. He's for Nelson Rockefeller." Well, liberal Republican.
Yeah.
So he was a liberal, too.
Yeah.
And, but, yes, LBJ was a write-in. What Joe Biden feared was somebody like an RFK or a more prominent, a real Democrat, getting on the ballot and doing to him what Eugene McCarthy did to Joe Biden.
Well,
so he just got rid of the primary for the Democrats.
Well, it's like in 2020, Biden did horribly here. I think he came in fourth.
He came in fifth.
In fifth.
Fifth.
And then I always say, and I think you've
South Carolina, he was doing badly until he hit South Carolina.
Yep.
When the people who knew him.
Well, I've always said he literally, I don't mean this hyperbolically, he literally owes his presidency to Congressman James Clyburn.
Right.
If Clyburn hadn't endorsed him and gotten him to say what he said at the debate about picking a black woman for the Supreme Court, if those two things hadn't happened, which was all Clyburn's doing, I believe Biden would have done poorly in South Carolina as well. When James Clyburn got up and said, "We know Joe, but more importantly, Joe knows us," that sealed the deal.
Right, because he was being criticized for being all but a racist, for writing, being one of the authors of the Super Predator Crime Bill, Super Predators Act, which later turns out Bernie actually voted for it, and Ted Kennedy helped write it. So, but he was getting his own vice president was going after him, which really pissed off Dr. Jill Biden because they thought she was a friend of theirs, not knowing she was more of a friend of Hillary Clinton.
Yes.
So, he was doing badly, and he didn't do too well in Nevada either.
Yeah.
But South Carolina, which I think 2/3 of the Democrats that voted were African American. You know, because of the switch in parties. When I was a kid, the Solid South meant Democrats,
Right.
and those Southern Democrats were racist. And Joe Biden was from a border state, so he was against busing, or he wouldn't.
Right.
Frankly, he would never have gotten elected. And those are the people that controlled the Senate. And he says, well, I had to deal with them, which is true. But
Yeah.
in 2020, when BLM's coming, this was anathema, even though it was rational. Politics isn't rational.
Yeah.
He wouldn't have been one of the most powerful men in the Senate, which Joe Biden was,
Yeah.
if he didn't get along with those old racists, you know?
Yeah.
But he was in a lot of trouble. But the black vote in South Carolina, and Jim Clyburn, who was at the time the number 4 Democrat in the House, but might have been Speaker, but they decided to go with the new generation.
Yeah.
You got Hakeem Jeffries, who's a much, you know, who's a really first-rate guy. Paul. And he's African American from Minnesota. I believe.
The pride of Crown Heights. That's what I was looking for.
Oh, he is from New York. That's right.
Yeah.
I'm thinking old DNC.
Because that kept coming up, you know, when they do,
Right.
whenever they do an election for Speaker of the House, and Hakeem Jeffries, of course, is up there. There's always someone who refers to him
Right.
as the pride of Crown Heights. It sticks in my brain.
So, you know, the reason New Hampshire's ditched is because of the lack of diversity. But I don't think that the South Carolina primary is necessarily any more diverse.
Right.
If you'd wanted a diverse primary, you'd go with Michigan. Because you've got blacks, working class whites, not somebody that Democrats care about anymore, and who are voted increasingly for Trump, but they still a lot that say they're Democrats. You've got a lot of Latinos, Latinx, whatever we want to call them. There are people, Muslims. There's a lot of Arabs.
Yep.
But that's probably one of the most diverse states.
Yeah,
and
true.
Nevada. That's the state you'd go to. But he decided to reward South Carolina.
Yep.
The state that has not voted for a Democratic presidential candidate since FDR in 1944.
Wow.
They did not go for. They didn't even go for the state that started the Civil War, the War of the Rebellion.
Yep.
The state whose governor, Strom Thurmond, like one of the number one racists of all time, ran in 1948 as the Dixiecrat and the Dixiecrat Party against Harry Truman, who had integrated the military. And and there was Jackie Robinson that already was playing baseball. I mean, well, what the hell is going on here? And in '64 he became a Republican in the Senate. He'd been a governor, then he became a Republican. I think he was the first Republican, the first one to change, first Democrat to change. And George Wallace, I'm not sure, because Wallace ran in '64. In '68, he did win South Carolina and the South. Another arch reactionary. And he was a racist, although he made some amends towards the
Birmingham,
end.
I love the governor.
Right. And I'm not sure if LBJ won South Carolina. I would think that he didn't. That's probably the ones that Barry Goldwater, who nobody would say was a racist, but because he was a libertarian, he would not vote for the Civil Rights Act.
Okay.
Which was, Republicans used to be very pro-black.
Right.
And pro-African American. But then Ronald Reagan exorcised the ghost of Lincoln from the Republican Party. But
well, I've heard Trump say, Lincoln, he may not have been so great.
Bad negotiator.
Bad negotiator.
He could have
Right.
negotiated. Here's one of the most brilliant men ever to be, president. But he was a bad negotiator. He didn't know how to make a deal.
Right. He could have made a deal. He could have let the South keep their slaves, which obviously is what Trump really means.
Well, as Lincoln said, if he could win without freeing the slaves, he wasn't an abolitionist, but that's a whole nother show.
That's a whole other...
Right, that's a whole nother show.
Whole other can of beans.
But see, it's hard for me. I wanted to go cover Nikki Haley.
Yeah.
When they asked her the question about the Civil War, my great-great-great-grandfather, Jacob Whittemore, having fought in the Civil War, and New England was the only place where people were abolitionists until the 1864 election, because the soldiers that saw the horrors of slavery were given the vote, and they voted overwhelmingly for Lincoln and helped save it. They thought he might go under in 1864. That and Sherman winning Atlanta. Yeah.
Well, when she gave that answer, it's like she forgot where she was. You
right.
can, like in New Hampshire, yeah, you can say slavery is bad. Now,
I couldn't see her after that because up in she's in Concord, right in City Hall is John Hale. John Hale was a U.S. senator, one of the first Republicans, mostly known because his daughter claimed that thought she was the fiancée of John Wilkes Booth, who I'm sure Trump would think would be great, one of the great Americans or whatever. But he was the first abolitionist to be elected to the Senate.
Yeah.
And there he is,
Yeah.
New Hampshire there were abolitionists here.
And she
fought the Civil War.
It was a very strange answer on her part. I mean, I could see her giving an answer like that if she were in her home state, maybe. Because obviously, if you're a Republican trying to win a Southern primary, you can't offend, you don't want to offend the guy with the pickup truck and the Confederate flag and the bumper sticker that says the South will rise again.
Right. Who was a neo-Confederate, who was a Democrat in the old days, but then became a Republican over letting blacks vote.
Yeah.
Which, your favorite Gene Hackman film,
Yes.
Mississippi Burning, is about the Freedom Summer and the murder of three activists.
Loosely based on.
Loosely based on it.
Very, very loosely, actually, as it turns out.
Yeah, my father didn't like it because it glorified the FBI.
Oh, really? Yeah.
Yeah, which, but
I can kind of see that.
my father didn't like the FBI. He didn't like cops.
Really? Yeah.
Yeah, that's why he was for OJ during the OJ trial. Both my parents were for OJ. My mother said
They were for OJ?
My mother said OJ Simpson was too handsome to have killed her, and my father said he was innocent just because I know him, but my father didn't like cops.
Wow. No kidding.
Yeah, they were both for OJ. My father was a big fan of Fidel Castro, too.
Really?
Yeah. And my mother, she says,
all right.
She once asked me, how's Raul doing? Not that my mother was a Republican.
Right.
Until Bill Clinton.
Oh, really? Yeah.
So what's going to happen in the Democrats?
So I don't know. Like I said, we're in uncharted waters here.
Will the write-in get him more than 50%?
I'm going to say, with great ambivalence and uncertainty, yes.
I think he could go 2/3. I don't think Marianne Williamson will get 10%. And I don't think Dean Phillips got in too late.
Yeah, I agree. No, they'll both do they'll both be in single digits, I think. No, I think Biden will... I guess people will write him in.
And I'm not voting for Vermin Supreme.
But how many people are going to
show up?
How many people are going to walk into a voting booth and just be confused? Like, seriously, like a lot of people on that day are going to walk into that voting booth who have not been paying attention, who have no idea.
Joe Biden's going to be on
and they're going to be like, wait, what? What's wrong with this ballot? Like a lot of people. That didn't even occur to me until just now.
A lot of names.
There's going to be mass confusion. A lot of people are going to be very confused on primary day. That didn't even occur to me until just now.
But I think you can hand out flyers within a certain amount, and you can have somebody with a billboard saying, write in Joe Biden.
There's going to be, those poll workers are going to have to explain to people, yeah, this hadn't occurred to me. People are just going to be baffled. People who aren't paying attention, who just show up to vote, they're going to be like, why is Biden not on my Democratic ballot? I don't understand.
I think democracy's through, but that's why that's why I want you in the show, because I always thought we were going to have a nuclear war.
Oh, I thought you were going to say you always thought that we would protect democracy, you and I.
Well, we tried.
Yeah, we tried. So we could have the nuclear war now if democracy's dead. There's really nothing left to save.
Well, the head of the Ministry of Defense in the UK is saying that we're close to World War III and we need to boost our defense spending. I bet a certain company that's even here in Manchester, we won't mention the name, probably put a few pounds in his pocket.
Only one? There's more than one, isn't there?
There's plenty of them.
Yeah, I was going to say.
Yeah, there's no peace dividend anymore.
No.
And I'm thinking, when the peace dividend died under George W. Bush.
It sure did.
That was a Bill Clinton thing.
Yep. Boy, those were good times, huh? Bill Clinton days. Even Republicans will admit that. Those were good times.
I think of you know how much I bitched about Obama. I'd like to see Michelle Obama as the candidate.
Would you?
As the Veep, and then the old fart retires.
You know, when you say that though, you're playing into the conspiracy theory among a lot of
Which one's that?
Republicans. The one about Michelle Obama's going to replace Biden somehow and become president.
Well, everything's being replaced. We're white people. We're replaced by whatever, AI at least, Anybody can write an article. AI, you don't need a writer anymore. New Hampshire was replaced by South Carolina, somewhat. Hey, I'm an old man now,
Oh.
It's time to just, in the words of Marlon Brando, sit on a hard seat working on a new hemorrhoid.
You're only as old as you feel. How old do you feel?
I feel old today, but Vermin Supreme didn't show up.
That's right, and he's older than you.
Is he?
I would assume.
I'm 64.
He's got to be older than that, right? I mean, you don't walk around with a boot on your head if you're 64.
I don't know.
He's got to be at least, I think he's probably in his 70s.
Oh.
I think so. I don't know.
But no, I can't get anybody in the show. So it's time to close down the friggin' thing. Yeah.
You always say that, but
I say that every year, but this is the year.
Really?
10 years.
10 years?
2014, June of 2014 to now. So I made it 9 years and 7 months.
Oh.
I'm in my 10th season.
So you're going to do a Seinfeld. You're not going to go for the even 10.
Well, I tell you.
You're in your 10th season. So
when you read about TV syndication, show has to have 4 seasons minimum.
I thought it was 5.
8. No, it was 4, and 8 is ideal for having a rota. Anything over 8, you're just wasting your time now.
Oh, so you're good. You're ready for the big syndication money.
Yes.
Wow. You're going to be on MeTV and channels like that soon. That'll be great.
Except you used to archive my shows, and then I asked you to take them down when I got sued, and so I think those all disappeared. And that was what my reputation and my genius was all based on. All washed, thrown into the ash.
Oh, well.
Well, we have a thank you, Matt, for being here.
Thank you for having me.
And who knows what will happen next Tuesday? Do you?
I don't. Like I said, well, I mean,
Trump and Biden will be the candidates.
Well, yeah,
Trump
that we
will be
know.
elected.
That we know.
Yeah.
The rematch America's clamoring for. God help us.
That's the best way of ending the show. Bye, folks. God help us.
Bye.
Well, I'm certainly grateful for this magnificent turnout. And now I'd like to say a few words. Hello? I must be going. I cannot stay. I came to say I must be going. I'm glad I came, but just the same, I must be going. La la.
For my sake, you must stay. If you should go away, you spoil this party. I am through.
I'll stay a week or two. I'll stay the summer through. But I am telling you, I must be going.
Before you go, you will blind us and never found. No need of going.
I'll do anything you say. In fact, I'll even stay. But I must be going. Well, I'm certainly grateful for this magnificent turnout. And now I'd like to say a few words. Hello? I must be going. I cannot stay. I came to say I must be going. I'm glad I came, but just the same, I must be going. La la.
For my sake, you must stay.